In this video, we're going to discuss several different ways that you can add seasonality, sales curves, seasonal spikes, different things like that into your forecasts. This video is kind of a supplemental video to your basic startup mini course, and you should definitely go through these modules before you watch this video, especially how to set up your forecast, because this covers all the different forecast options. Specifically in this video, I want to just narrow down the few different ways that you can add seasonality. So by default, your forecast is based on your last 180 days worth of sales velocity. But that's going to give you more or less a flat curve, or really no curve. So as you can see, historically, my sales go up and down over time in the last year or so, but this is looking at only 8.76 sales per day, or that will change as my velocity changes, and predicting that going forward. So there's a few different ways that we can add seasonality into this. The first one is, instead of using a flat velocity, which is really just an average of these different periods, I can actually switch over to last year's sales. Now this only works if you've been selling consistently for at least a year. What the system is doing is it's looking at every single day over the last year and how many units did you sell on each day. It will also filter out stockouts if you have your stockout tool turned on. I prefer to look at this monthly, so I can look at 12 months worth of sales history, and it will look at the last 12 months worth of sales history and then exactly replicate that for the next 12 months. You can of course add additional trends and growth and lightning deals in there, which I'll talk about in a minute. So let's say we use that one. So I can save and apply this to this product, or use my drop-down menu and save and apply that to all. And this will actually take the last year's worth of sales and exactly replicate that for the next year. And then every day it's going to show what I sold on that day in my last year's sales velocity right here. Instead of averaging out this, on this day last year I sold exactly 10 units for this product, and it will replicate that moving forward day by day, or week by week, or month by month. Okay? So that's using last year's sales. Now, on top of last year's sales, I could, if I wanted to, use some of these tools down here, such as additional sales growth or trend. So for example, if I wanted to turn my trend tool on, and this is fully covered, like I mentioned before, in the how to set up your forecast, I'm just doing a quick overview of each type. You can turn on last year's sales plus an additional trend and look at, period month over month or year to date. For example, I'm actually selling less this year than I did last year. So if I wanted to predict, well, if I sell about 23% this year than last year, I can apply that, and it will take all of those monthly sales numbers or daily sales numbers and subtract whatever that percentage is from there. So now in my graph, I'm looking at 23% less than what I did last year. Probably easier to look at it that way. Okay, so that is last year's sales. Let's look at the next option. Okay, the next option would be to use a baseline velocity here, or I can also use a manual velocity if I don't have any historical sales history, but I would not use this next feature in conjunction with last year's sales, because it's a replacement for last year's sales. And that is my seasonal spikes tool down here. So by default it's off, but if I turn this on, I've got two different options. I can do automatic seasonality, or I can do manual seasonality. Automatic seasonality is covered in this tutorial here, and I'm not going to fully cover it in this document in this video, but I just want to give you a very quick overview. What automatic seasonality is doing is you can choose the marketplace, you can choose weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, etc., and it will actually average all of your sales for the last year, and then compare each one of those periods as a percentage above or below your average sales for the year. And then what it'll do is it'll take that graph and basically map today's velocity against those percentages moving forward. So that is called the automated seasonality tool. I would not use this tool if you have a product that sells like almost nothing all year and then has like 1 or 2 months worth of sales. Because we're dealing with percentages of an average, it just doesn't work well. So I would always recommend to use last year's sales if you have highly seasonal products. For example, if you're selling Halloween costumes and you only sell for 1 or 2 months out of the year, or if you sell, Santa hats or some kind of Christmas decorations, or something that's highly seasonal where a majority of the year you're not selling anything, and then you sell for 1 or 2 months, this would not be a good tool to use for that. I would use either the manual seasonal spikes down here, which I'm about to explain, or last year's sales with plus or minus growth, as I've already explained. So that's the automated seasonality, seasonal spikes. Manual seasonal spikes has been around for a long time. And this is very rudimentary. You basically take a date range. So in this example, I will take from, let's say, like this. From, let's say, Black Friday, which is, I believe that is the 24th this year. And I will go through basically the 23rd of December. That's going to be, for most sellers in the United States at least, what we call Q4, right? It really picks up the last month of the year. Usually Q4 starts before there technically, but this would be like the majority of my big sales. I'll call this my holiday sales, and I could give this a name like holiday. And the manual seasonal spikes tool, similar to the automated one, works on percentages, but this is a percentage that I'm going to plug in. And this is very rudimentary. I'm just going to take today's velocity and I'm going to add an additional percentage on top of it, and the system will calculate the additional units. So if I'm selling about 9 units per day, and I said, traditionally I sell 250% more during Christmas, it's going to take this number times 250% equals this many additional units. And then I can even lock that in. So as my velocity changes, this number doesn't change. So you can go ahead and read more about that there, but that's how the manual seasonal spikes works. And I can even put a negative percentage in there if I really wanted to, and it will actually do the math the other way. So if I have an extraordinarily low month, then I can put that in as well. So this works on percentages, and I can choose to lock or unlock. And this, by default, this will repeat annually, so you don't have to remember to reset those every year. Now, this might be better for you if you don't have a year's worth of sales history, and so therefore you cannot use last year's sales, nor can you use automated seasonal spikes, because we have to have historical data to read from. You can borrow historical seasonality. Again, watch this tutorial if you want to use automated. But this one is better for products where you just really don't know, and you'd prefer just to manually put in some percentages. I've seen clients come in here and build an entire year of manual seasonal spikes, which you could technically do up in the automated seasonality too, but it's a bit more complicated. So this is just an alternative for you to do manual numbers. Okay. And the last method in this video that we'll cover for adding seasonality or future sales increases or decreases is called our lightning deals tool, called future lightning deals, and you can read about it here. And it works very similar to the manual seasonal spikes. You give it a date range, so we'll just do it the way I did before, where I'm going to go the 24th through the 23rd. And instead of using a percentage, I can add a total number of units. So I expect to sell an additional 350 units over that entire month. Now, if I save this, what it's going to do is it's not working on a percentage, it's working on a total number of units that I get to put in there. And if we scroll down, you can see that those units are divided daily. So I'd put 350 units divided by however many days that was is an additional 12 units per day. So when I get to that portion of my timeline here, you can see exactly what my additional units are. And whether you're using automated seasonality, manual seasonal spikes, or future lightning deals, these will always be in blue. If you're using last year's sales, they will not be in blue because there's no calculation. It's just copying last year's sales. So last year's sales will show in black because we're not adding additional, sales in there. But any additional sales, whether it be from this tool or the lightning deals tool, always show up in blue, and you can click here to see your baseline velocity plus or minus sales for that period. Now, I just want to say something about the lightning deals tool. It's not specifically or only for lightning deals. This could be for a one-day sales blitz. It could be for a Facebook ad campaign, a Google Ads campaign. It could be for Black Friday. We just called it lightning deals because when we built this tool, it was primarily for Amazon sellers. And that's what the most common type of sale that they run on Amazon is called a lightning deal. And it's usually a 1-day blitz. So that's what most people use it for. But some people like to use it for longer periods as well. And they feel more comfortable putting in a total number of units versus a percentage. So those are kind of the 3 or 4 different ways that you can add seasonality into your forecasts. Again, and I know I've said this 2 times already, but please go watch the how to set up your forecasts. Always try to go through and look, search our database for additional keywords if you need additional data or training. And you can always reach out to us at helpme@sostock.com if you have any more questions. Cheers.